Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of the Virtual Island Summit. Thank you so much for joining us for this session. My name is Michaela Johnson, and I am the Business Development Associate at Island Innovation. I am based in the Caribbean, the beautiful Twin Island state of Trinidad and Tobago, to be exact, and I'm seeing we have a lot of persons joining us from so many different regions today. Be sure to let us know where you're joining from in the chat. I'm sure many of you have joined us for a few sessions so far this week, but if this is your first session, we're happy to have you here. Island Innovation is a sustainable development consultancy primarily focusing on islands. Our services include island development strategies, impact program design and coordination, capacity building, events, strategic communications, and government affairs. We are trusted by clients around the globe, and if you're interested in learning more about our work, please reach out to us using the contact information available in the chat. I'm very happy to be presenting this session titled Maximizing Resource Efficiency and Minimizing Waste, Exploring Circular Economy Solutions in the Caribbean. Now you should see a poll on your screen. Please let us know your gender, where you're connecting from, and the sector and industry that you belong to. I see from the chat we have persons joining us from Colombia, Mauritius, the UK, the US, Portugal, Grenada, Belize City, Jamaica, Canada, Dominica, the Dominican Republic. Welcome, everyone. Such a diverse group of people here today. Join us for this interesting session exploring the practical strategies and innovative solutions for reducing waste and enhancing resource efficiency in the Caribbean region. We will also discuss the unique challenges and opportunities faced by Caribbean nations in adopting circular economy principles. I invite you to continue making use of the chat function, introduce yourself, and of course, make any comments during this session. Please make sure that you use the Q&A function for any questions you might have for our panelists, and we will do our best to answer them when we get to that Q&A part of today's session. All right, so now let's take a look at the results for this poll. So we have a diverse group of people joining us, mainly from the Caribbean region. I'm so happy to see so many of you here with us today. So at this time, I will hand you over to our moderator, Ms. Karen McDonald-Gale, CEO of the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. Karen?
Thank you, Michaela. And first, I add my own words of welcome to you all for joining. Thank you so much. Very glad to have you all here. And thank you to Island Innovation for once again including and working with the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund in your virtual Island Summit. Always very interesting and thought-provoking discussions and presentations from the summit. So we are very happy to be a part of it. Let me tell you a little bit about the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. The mission of the CBS is to ensure continuous funding for conservation and sustainable development in the Caribbean. Our efforts so far have been focused on national conservation trust funds and conservation finance, and on ecosystem-based adaptation. And hopefully you all have heard some of our work, but if not, please go and check out our website. As we've continued to work throughout the Caribbean and the small island developing states in the Caribbean, the issue of circular economy has come up. The need to close the loop and promote circular economy principles has been what only makes sense for us moving forward as the CBF. And what are those circular economy principles? I'm going to leave you to research it some, but just to give you an idea of the things that we've thought about. The idea of resource efficiency, making sure that we're not creating waste, we're creating new products or other products. Figuring out the waste management challenges in the region. Small island states have small spaces for the disposal of waste. Finding new and innovative potential solutions for the region and some of our new challenges. And finally, the inclusion of the communities and the people and the citizens that we serve. I will take the last 5 seconds that I have to tell you about one of the projects or one of the programs that we have under the Circular Economy Program, which is focused on connecting the Caribbean. It's actually called Caribbean Connect. And it talks about the need for a regional mechanism that provides a forum for dialogue and coordination between relevant entities that looks at information exchange, synergizing work and making sure that each of the various projects that you may or may not have heard of, or some that you will hear about today, are talking to each other, so that when something comes up in Jamaica, it is the knowledge is transferred over to the others. With that, I'm very pleased to say that we have to help us with our discussion today, a very vibrant panel and group of experts who's done a range of work in circular economy in the region, and hopefully it's just the start of the work that they will be doing. I'm pleased to introduce the panel who will speak in the order that I call to them. Florian Mitchell is the manager of the Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation. Polita Bennett Martin is the co-founder and director of programs at Sea of Life Belize. Luke Buchanan is the executive director of Mona Geoinformatics Institute of Jamaica. And Dan Van Hesten is with Fuse Caribbean and will be talking to us on some of the work. They will all be talking to us on some of the work we've been doing. And we are actually going to start today with Flora, and of course, Rachel Ramsey, who is our program manager at this Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, working on the Nature-Based Economies program, and she will tell you more about those efforts. So we're very pleased with this panel. I think it will really bring to the discussion a range of the possibilities of what circular economy can mean in the region. And I am going to go straight into the presentations from our panelists, starting with Florian Mitchell, as he turns on his camera. Saying again, just to introduce that he's the manager of the Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation. Welcome, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Gail. I met you in Barbados. I think I could call you Gail, so I hope that's fine. I am Florian Mitchell. I am the general manager of the Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation. It's indeed a pleasure to be here and to present on current policies supporting economic practices in the region. The question basically hinges on two areas. It speaks to key needs and current policies. So where circular economy is concerned, I think it could be summed up into four elements where key needs are concerned. One is recognition. So we need to recognize that the approach that we have in our Caribbean space is that of a linear approach that speaks to waste management activities. So we need to consider that first. We need to recognize we are basically utilizing a linear approach. We also need to recognize that circular economy practices and that of residential waste collection is two different elements. So recognition is very critical to me. And when we recognize the elements that is at hand, that one, the practice and the approach that we are speaking to implement to that of circular economy, it considers environmental preservation, protection of human health, fostering livelihood. And my personal view, encompassing or achieving the circular economy approach within our jurisdiction, it is aligned to all the SDGs. Another area, again, institution strengthening and capacity building. After you have recognized the need for moving from a linear approach to that of a circular economy, what is the level of capacity building that is needed? Considering that the waste management value chain do not hinge only on that of government. A lot of private sector enterprise is involved somewhat in the waste management hierarchy. Most waste management authorities, we do not really import commodities for sale. So that is primarily done by the private sector. So in there, the whole issue of institutional strengthening and capacity building, this is critical in ensuring that all players are intrinsically involved in the value chain. Another element is that of legislative framework. After we have recognized, after we have set up the necessary institutional strengthening and capacity building as required, if we do not have a legal basis, a legal framework now that would allow for tangible action to be carried out around the value chain, we will not be able to achieve the circularity that we are looking for. So legislative framework, to me, this is the cornerstone required in setting the context for the system that should be implemented on a local level. And we need to recognize that though we are islands, though we are states, our local circumstances are different. And in the legislation that may be required or may be needed might be similar in construct, but may want to address a particular local scenario that differs from island to island. So the legal basis is very important, legislative framework. And as I said, this is required for fostering the desired change within the value change. Last, but extremely important, access to financing. It is commonly said, money and sorry for all. And I would probably take the opportunity to applaud the just concluded Zero Waste in the Caribbean, New Waves on hosting a regional workshop focusing on financing circular economy solution for waste management. And financing is critically important and plays, to me, might be the most significant role as we transition from that of linear to circular economy. And this has already been established, and that would further promote the transition that is required in the circular economy approach. So to me, those are the 4 areas: recognition, institutional strength and capacity building, legislative framework, and access to finance. To me, these are the needs that is required to support the transition. When we speak of...
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Let's we will come back. We will have another opportunity with questions. I wanted to bring in Diane Van Essen from Fuse Caribbean to give us some perspective from the NGO side of things, the non-government side of things, on what the most relevant aspects of the circular economy approach is in the Caribbean.
Thank you, Karen, but I think you have to ask one of the other panelists for this question. I think Paulita, maybe, because I'm from a private company and not from an NGO.
No, it was, so for me, the definition was wide. I see the discussion point with you, but I'm happy to ask Paulita if you like. If you like.
I'm fine with everything. I just yeah. What would you prefer?
So I'm the question for you, Diane, was what are the most relevant aspects of the circular economy approach to the Caribbean region?
Yes, and so I'm working for a private company. So what I just heard from Mr. Mitchell really resonated with me, as collaboration between all parties involved is really crucial in presenting alternatives to the current linear economic waste management methods that we have in, for instance, the Caribbean islands. So I think it's important to recognize that most Caribbean countries are small island states, and they are very vulnerable to the effect of climate change, for instance. So protecting and restoring nature is one of the important actions to save the climate and to save also these islands. I think, however, the linear economy still is their main waste management method. It poses ecological risks like landfill fires that we have here, for instance, on Curaçao or Bonaire, illegal dumping, water pollution. So these are problems that the countries here are facing on a daily basis. And they also, as you also said, Karen, there's not much land left anymore for final disposal of waste. So therefore, in my opinion and from my experience, I think the circular approach, economy approach, has the ability of presenting an alternative to these risks. So to landfilling and to, for instance, dumping. By closing the loop, as what you also said, Karen. So closing the loop locally is what we do here with our projects. And by this, I mean that we can extend the life cycle of, in our case, plastic products by making them part of a local value chain. This is what Mr. Mitchell also touched upon. So by transforming local waste into a resource and then into a product that can be sold locally, so having an end product for the local market is really important in this value chain. And we believe this really helps reduce mismanaged waste to a minimum. And also, these value chains can help to offer opportunities for income generation or for formalizing jobs. But we're also looking into integrating other waste streams within our processes. So with a more circular economic approach, you can really facilitate these communities to be resilient and not to be dependent too heavily on the outside world. And yeah, I think this is a very relevant aspect, as you also introduced in your talk. So creating the loop is what we would promote. Thank you.
Thank you. And in the Caribbean region, you've had some successes with those. So we will hear more about those when we come back around to you.
Sure,
But
thank you.
Now, yes, for Paulita Bennett Martin, the question of community involvement and what does it mean in the Caribbean? How do we effectively and efficiently engage local communities in waste reduction and resource efficiency initiatives? All of this nice language that we've used, closing loops, etc. What does it really mean on the ground with the communities in the Caribbean?
Absolutely, Ms. Karen. Thank you very much for posing that question. So I had to think a lot about this, and I think that there's an ethos that we need to work in to really address this question. Part of that ethos is being whatever we're bringing to the table as nonprofits working within the communities, we need to make sure that we are consistent, that we don't just jump in and do a project and then we're done because we have a small impact. No, we have to have consistency because it's going to take time to create change, correct? We also need to make sure that we're comprehensive about what it is that we're sharing with people. In Belize, where I'm working specifically, when we work with students, people of all ages and all backgrounds, the technical awareness of what plastic pollution is and the threats that it brings to our communities are not necessarily there. We're still at a place where many people see plastic and other forms of waste as just that, waste, garbage out the door. Maybe it's litter, right? But they don't necessarily know about the creation of a lot of these products, those impacts to our planet, as well as the public health implications that come along with creating these products. And then they're not tracking what happens after it goes into the waste stream and how it's managed once it leaves our homes. So we really think that, or I very much have experienced that we need to be comprehensive in the type of information that we're sharing with people so that they can get to know what's happening with these matters, right? And there's a third piece to this, which is also thinking intersectionally. So with our projects at Sea of Life, we're an organization that centers people in conservation. That's how we work everything. We're not the sexy organization that's out at sea pulling plastics from the ocean. We're in the neighborhood, we're in the schools, we're in the local shops. We're trying to work with community members to solve for plastic pollution by working with them on the ideas that they have for their local community. And then we want to amplify those solutions for people so that maybe they can have a small entrepreneurial solution. Or they might have a small community solution that they put in place, but thinking hyper local like that can be profound and contribute to the global change that we're looking for, okay? So I'll give one quick example of how we're doing this right now. Belize City, if you walk out your door in Belize City, there are thousands of opportunities to reduce waste everywhere you look. But we can't do it all. So we've partnered with Wesley College, the oldest school here in Belize City. And they have about 650 students currently purchasing about 240,000 single-use plastic water pouches and bottles every school year. That's just one school. And we have worked with them to visualize what it might be to get rid of plastics on their campus. And so what we settled on collaboratively was to build a state-of-the-art reverse osmosis system and then also create a water fee. That water fee is then going into the school to actually bring money into sustainability programs. It brings over $20,000 a year profit to the school system, to that school. But it also saves each parent over $500 a year because they're now only paying $135 a year water fee. So they have access to unlimited clean, top, like gold standard fresh water. And they've also eliminated those single-use plastics from being in circulation at all. So we're thinking about this issue comprehensively. We're thinking about how it impacts the pocketbook, how it impacts the family, how it impacts the school. And then we're working together with other sectors like artists. They're coming in and doing public art murals on the campus to continue to amplify the educational aspect. And then Sea of Life is also providing educational materials to the school all year round. We're trying to empower the educators that are already in place because their time is tapped as well. So really thinking, again, going back to those three things, right? Thinking comprehensively about the issue. It's not just an environmental issue. Thinking about it with consistency. We're partnering with the school for a minimum of 2 years under contract and obligation. And then also thinking about it intersectionally. How does this impact everyone? And what can everyone bring to the table to solve for the issue? I'll stop there. Thank you for letting me share that information.
No, very interesting. And I think really hitting the ground literally in terms of what needs to be done. And I think the question I have for Luke Buchanan from Mona GIS, Mona Geoinformatics, I think probably will dissect the last two speakers well, because Mona Geoinformatics is also private sector, but I know that they're doing innovative work that involves local communities in Jamaica. And the question, Luke, is to give us your thoughts on what you think promising technologies are that you are aware of or that you've used for developing waste reduction and resource efficiency that could be beneficial across the Caribbean.
Yes, thank you, Karen, and greetings, everyone. Yes, so I'm here in Kingston, Jamaica, and as you know, Jamaica is a developing country. So most of the technologies that are available are yet to come to Jamaica, but we at least have some parts, and I'll give an example later on. But one of the most important things I want to outline before I get into the different technologies that can contribute to developing a vibrant circular economy in the Caribbean region, for example, is it is crucial for organizations that are coming into the region to do proper market research, need assessment, and due diligence on the kind of technologies that will fit well in terms of our access to energy, in terms of how we do things, how things are closely intertwined with culture in the region. In terms of certain technologies that we could look at, you have waste to energy. And I know that the cement company here in Jamaica and different parts of the Caribbean is looking at waste to energy, but it's not just traditional waste to energy. We're looking at clean waste to energy where you reduce the toxic nature of the gases that are given out. Secondly, there is circular economy platforms. We have all heard about blockchain or about cryptocurrency. So it's the same idea. I guess the better term to use is traceability, or they call it blockchain waste tracking, where you basically track every piece of material that as it goes through the life cycle. So you can know where it is at all times, and you know how to collect it, and you know how to reuse it. And one example I can use is we have the Ocean Cleanup is doing active work in Jamaica, and we work directly with the Ocean Cleanup. And they have gone into partnership with Kia Automotive. And what Kia will be doing is to use plastic that is collected from the ocean to integrate into their vehicles. And we think this is massive because this will allow the Ocean Cleanup to get access to funding and cutting-edge technology. And countries like Jamaica, I know they're in Panama, in El Salvador, plastics that are collected from these rivers or these gullies will become a part of this process. There are also advanced recycling technologies such as chemical recycling that looks at break plastic down into raw materials And I know Fuse Caribbean is doing a lot of work where plastic recycling is concerned, and we're hoping to work with them in the near future. There is also smart waste management systems. So smart garbage collection bins, for example. These bins are equipped with certain sensors. So once the bins are loaded, and I know our colleague from from Dominica would actually would have done some research on these kind of things already. So once these bins are filled up, some kind of information will be sent to the proper authorities so it can be quickly collected and sorted. We have AI sorting as well. We're in the AI era where there are certain kind of devices that can be placed in certain materials, and artificial intelligence will help us to do the sorting, the pre-sorting of solid waste. We can also look at the expansion of biodegradable materials, bioplastics. We can look at edible packaging, for example. So we can look at reducing plastic packaging and actually using packaging that is actually edible. A lot of the times when we talk about the circular economy, we don't focus on food waste, but again, food waste is a critical part of the circular economy. So one technology that can be used is what we call smart refrigeration. Smart refrigeration systems that will actually kind of monitor how the lifespan of certain food. We have compostable sensors as well in the food packaging itself, can actually give you a countdown as you reach the expiry date of certain food items. Again, you have 3D printing. You can use 3D printing for manufacturing, for example, that reduces the amount of waste. It's called zero waste manufacturing. You can also do some research on 3D printed houses. So normally when you use the traditional way of making houses, you'll have a lot of waste of concrete blocks and all of that. With 3D printing, of course, you'll have zero waste at the construction site, or almost zero waste at the construction site. So this will go directly towards reduction in the amount of material that you use. And finally, one of the things that we're doing in Jamaica is we already have a system where we're collecting plastics from the ocean. So we're preventing, right at the coastline, we're preventing a lot of plastics from going into the marine environment. We already have a sorting system. We already have a scheme in place where there is funding for the recycling of plastics. So the next phase that we want to move to now is to actually start turning these plastics into new products, because right now, Recycling Partners of Jamaica, which is the largest recycling company in Jamaica, is actually exporting these plastics for free. So we want to actually start earning from these plastics. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. And just to point out to everybody that we have the chat, but we also have questions and answers, and I'm more likely to see your relevant questions in the Q&A box. So please make sure and put those questions there. I'm actually going to give the producers some trouble and go back to Luke, because I think you mentioned all these big technology opportunities. And the next question that comes to mind is, how will that work in the Caribbean? How will the region, or what do you think or propose when people say, well, we're limited in what we can do technologically? How can the region overcome current challenges regarding limited technology?
Right. So the first point I made is that due diligence need to be done, right? So there are a lot of technologies out there. One of our challenges in the region is energy, right? Access to energy. But of course, solar, renewable energy is something that we'll have to invest in. We're blessed in a region with access to sunlight on a regular basis. So that is something that we need to invest in as well. We know that solar panels are slowly getting more efficient. From the policy side of things, the regional government need to look at subsidizing or providing tax breaks to these industries. Fuse Caribbean, for example, is a Dutch company that is doing excellent work in the Caribbean region. And they are also collecting a lot of data that will inform the entire industry. So again, we have to pay attention to the culture as well. A lot of the things that we want to produce in the Caribbean with these plastics, we'll have to link closely with different livelihoods. So if a person is into art and craft, then we have to make sure that when we're doing the recycling, then we have some kind of support for that industry as well. Tourism, all of these different industries, it's directly applicable.
Thanks, Luke. And I think that leads directly to asking Mr. Mitchell to tell us more about what exists in terms of policy in the region that has worked, and what ideas do you have for things that might work based on some of what you've heard from the partners here today?
It's very much interesting to hear Lucas speak in terms of the technology that is required. I mean, closing the loop, you need access to technology. And in considering technology, to me, it has to be practical and tailored for our national development. Most times we consider technology, and when we look at the region, we sometimes consider our island as the region and not the region in broad context of all the islands. So when we speak to strategies that would allow us, because when we speak to closing the loop and circular economy, we speak to producing a commodity that is really conceptualized recycling. And most times no one island has sufficient material based off or numbers, so there needs to be a broader concept of a policy direction. I'm going right into it that would allow us to conceptualize moving material throughout our jurisdiction to foster the circular economy approach that is required. What we have seen in the region, and again, we need to note that moving to that element is something new to us. I mean, some of us as practitioners may have heard of it, but the policies that are required. In 1996, Barbados implemented a system called a disposable beverage container. That was in 1996. To me, that was visionary. In 1996, Dominica did not have a sanitary landfill. Dominica had opened up. And in 1996, there's Barbados trying to consider how they could deal with a packaging material within their jurisdiction. And today it works fine. If you go to Barbados, you will not see a lot of the plastic, which is an emerging pollutant in our space now, floating around the place. So that speaks to policies and in programs that is enacted locally that helps drive the method. But what we've noticed in our region, we have a lot of environmental levy or equivalent tax system that is imposed on imported goods. And where those are good, I mean, it is good, but in the context of circular economy approach, is it relevant? Is the law concerning those revenue streams supporting the reuse of that material? So if I return it to a facility, am I going to get some form of revenue? So the existing levy system does not allow for those kinds of initiatives to take place. As our friend spoke of, the level of investment may be required with the kind of technology. So there needs to be a push, or as I said, a migration thereof to that of a polluter pay principle or a EPR system. And that would transform the traditional way of dealing with waste management within our border states. I mean, yes, we have a few systems that works, but in terms of the circular economy approach, and that's why in my early remarks, I made mention to, we need to recognize what linear is, what circular is. And the financing mechanism or the legal framework that is required for municipal waste, solid waste management is not the same as that of a circular economy concept that promotes waste as a resource. So we need to understand and recognize those and have the applicable legislation that allows the importer, everybody within the value chain, to be able to participate in ensuring that material, which is packaging at best by nature, is recirculated and reused over and over again. And I choose 2 islands just to show. Quite up in the North Dominican Republic, up north as far you could go, and Trinidad as down south as you can go. And one of the things that they're looking at in DR is the necessary regulation that would allow them to prioritize 7 waste streams: lubricant oil, batteries, pesticide, tires, packaging and foam, electrical equipment. So they are conceptualizing an EPR system that would allow them to deal with those problematic waste. And if we go down quite south, as in Trinidad in 2024, they approve a few policies, and one of them is a national recycling policy and the beverage containers deposit return policy. So you could see there is already this move to transition from our linear to our circular economy approach. And again, through the OECS demonstrative plastic recycling project, and again, the UNEP Zero program, it presents an avenue that member states can begin to utilize and develop the framework needed in advancing a circular economy approach within our jurisdiction to maximize the full benefit of what an EPR really supposed to do. Noting that within our region, we have land, sea, and air. And if we do not conceptualize those policy approaches that is required, what we hold as a resource will not be a resource no more.
Thank you. And the only thing I would add is it shouldn't be, I'd love to see that whatever has been done in one of the islands is easier. You know, we shouldn't be starting from a basic framework each time we're going to one of the islands. So the regional approach is well appreciated. Diane, my question back to you is, in terms of your experience, what are the opportunities for innovators and startups in terms of circular economy in the region and in the Caribbean?
Yes, thank you, Karen. Yeah, again, I want to emphasize what Mr. Mitchell just said, that EPR is really a relevant opportunity also for us as a company, because it shows that there's increased traction for these kind of developments. And what we are trying to do is to work together with, for instance, producers, local and national governments, and also like companies like ours, to bring them together to explore best ways to reduce waste generation and recycle products in a specific context. So contexts are really important when you look at the challenge that we have. I think what's also interesting for us as a startup is that technology is accessible now, because we know so much more about polymers, about plastics, how you can mix them, how you can reduce them. So I think that we're living in a time where these innovations are moving very rapidly. And we are trying to get these technologies to the islands to make it also fit in the context that we, for instance, here in Curaçao work in. So we try to make it as small as possible, energy efficient as possible, and we can, because we have the technologies available. We just have to see and learn about how it works locally. And it could be different from one island to the other. And that's what you also said. Just talk to each other, learn from each other, and see what works in the specific context. But, you know, we feel that we are in the right time to take this on.
Just in case somebody in the audience doesn't know, EPR stands for?
Yes. And extended producer responsibility. So this means that producers are responsible now for the entire life cycle of their products, and they are searching for innovative solutions. So why not just work together and see how it could work in your local context? So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
And I know I want to get Pauletta in one more time just to ask her now, how does it all work on the ground, in particular with grassroots organizations? What have they been doing? What is their role in this circular economy as we wind up the discussion?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had to wrap my head around this question, because I think NGOs and grassroots organizations, they play all sorts of roles in encouraging and promoting sustainability. But I think that the most central thing in all of our roles is that we actually fill the gaps that the government and that the for-profit industry are not set up to fill, right? We should be a partner that's working with government and working with businesses. And so, you know, some organizations may be out there working on advocacy and voicing the change that they want to see. And then there's smaller groups that are more community-based, looking to co-create solutions for plastic pollution. And so I think that it just depends on the organization, but we're really there to be a partner, an ally with the government, with businesses, to co-create solutions. I also think that it's important to note that while we have to find ways to cope with and manage waste, critical to this region, critical to countries like Belize, where space is limited and where resources are limited, is reduction has to be the front line, because we can't recycle, we just can't melt and cook and recycle our way out of the amount of plastics that are being generated. And we also have to think about that impact to our communities as frontline communities, as the Caribbean is. We are the front line of climate change. And when you continue to perpetuate the production of materials that are made from fossil fuels, we continue to perpetuate those impacts to our communities. One thing I wanted to share real quick, if I could, is just this image that I promised I would share earlier, just to kind of show how it happens down on the ground, as you say. Let's see here. Okay, let's see. Is that full screen? So this is us working with educators, with students, and with community members that came out because they saw something happening. They're like, what the heck is that? Why are all these people touching all that trash? This is what an audit looks like when we work with a school. And so in our audits in Belize, we're averaging somewhere between maybe 2,500 being the lowest number that we will capture in under an hour of waste in a school, all the way up to about 6,000 pieces of waste.
Oh, wow.
You can kind of see how things look on the ground.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Very, very interesting discussion. And I'm going to encourage the panelists to look through the question and answers and see if you can help with those answers, while I bring in my colleague, Rachel Ramsey, whose time we've taken away from, but you make it work, to tell us a little bit more about the Advancing Circular Economy work that CBF is doing. Thanks, Rachel. Please go ahead.
Hello and good afternoon or good evening, based on where you are. Karen, just confirming that the slides are up in full screen.
They are, you're great.
All good, thank you so much. All right, so we've heard along the discourse about the role, the multi-sectoral role that we have in terms of achieving circularity in small island developing spaces. We've heard a bit about innovative solutions. We've heard about policy decisions that we may need to take along the way. And so we felt like it would be very timely for us to then sum up the discussions, as we've got a new wheels going and we're thinking caps on, to present on the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund's Advancing Circular Economy facility. So what we have to tell you about is that we currently have a call for proposals that's open, where we're providing grants, and we'll provide some details on that over the next few minutes, on initiatives, interventions that can contribute to circularity in the region. And the work that we're doing under the first call is just a start, where we're focusing on solid waste management. And the intervention should focus on those that are contributing to the minimization of marine pollution. So on the screen, you have the QR code that links you to the call for proposals page. Maybe just save that, and in the next few minutes, we give some additional details. And then, of course, we encourage you to absolutely go through everything in detail. Reach out to us using the ACE Facilities email that's provided there if you have questions, need for clarification. Just a disclaimer, this slide is a little dated. The call does close. The first call closes on September the 20th. And this is just starting with concept notes, so it's not a whole lot to do. So we still think it's achievable. But don't be too alarmed, because we want to reassure you that we would also be issuing a second call for proposals next year. Right, so just a bit about what we have made provisions for under the ACE facility. And so starting up with the countries that can directly benefit as it is right now. We have 9 primary beneficiary countries. We have made a note here in terms of special requirements for working with Cuba, but we're very much open to see how we can continue to support them. And in terms of the sectors that the call for proposals are open to, you'd see that we very much touched on that multi-sectoral span of things. So we're open from NGOs, regional organizations, public institutions, CBOs, and the ground. For private sectors, we're looking at SMEs specifically. One point to note, very relevant to this space, is that we are open to applications from outside of the Caribbean region, in that we want to encourage partnerships on the ground in the countries. So in order to qualify for the grants as an international organization, we need to see demonstrated partnerships with at least one partner in the project country, the proposed project country. Another thing is to add here that we're very much open to the consortium approach. So we're looking for partnerships throughout the discourse. I think we recognize that we might have more impactful solutions come towards us, and impactful projects where we look at that multi-sectoral approach. Now, just zeroing in on the nature of the projects that we're keen to fund. Under the first call, we're focusing on projects that could promote and apply practical circular economy principles that will minimize and prevent waste from entering into the marine environment. So we heard the jargon before in terms of circularity and the value chains, but here now we're also talking about upstream solutions where, and it might be answering one of the questions posed in the chat, in the small island context, we're very much import dependent. And we're moving a lot of products and material into our countries that then contribute to pollution in the long run. So, you know, those are things that we can think about there. And then also we're looking at interventions that can look at the removal of marine litter. We heard a bit about those interventions, whether in nearshore entrapment or removal from the coastal areas. And so we're keen to see some of those interventions move forward while ensuring there's some circularity built into it, where the waste that's removed is then properly disposed of or reintroduced, refurbished, recycled in some sort of sound manner. And so what we're looking for also is that across these 2 main target areas, we have support for data and knowledge generation. Topics on circular economy in the region come through. Sustainability, we heard about this, where we're not looking at a project-based approach only, but we want to see financial feasibility built into some of the projects so that then they're able to run independently of the grant funding period. Karen would have mentioned the Caribbean Connect. So organizationally, this is how we're trying to propel the region in terms of, you know, having discussions, sharing success stories, sharing what's not working well for us in this space of circularity. But in the projects also, we want to see how we can build in and consider partnerships in the region. Right, so we have some very targeted waste streams and sectors. As I mentioned, we're focusing on solid waste, and this is well elaborated on the call for proposals page, so we encourage you to look at that there. As mentioned, we're looking at this 3-pronged approach where we're looking for sustainability, marine pollution management, and circularity built into each of the projects. And the eligibility criteria is provided also on our call for proposals page, where these are further broken down and well elaborated, so you can consider in the design of the project. So the grants can go from $400,000 to $2 million per project. The project implementation period, 2.5 to 3 years. And we have also elaborated in the call for proposals documents, the co-financing requirements. In there, we've also further defined what can count as in-kind, what can count as cash contributions, and so forth and so on. So how it works, Right now, we have open the concept note phase. It's 2 phases. Then we move to full proposal phase. Once your concept note meets the requirements, you are then shortlisted to move into the full proposal phase. So this is just a snapshot of the website. So as you continue on exploring the page there, you'd see that we made provisions and we've provided the templates. We have a guidance document, we have the criteria, and these are provided in English, Spanish, and French. We have a bunch of resources also. We have questions and answers that we've received along the way, and we encourage you to scan those so that they can also answer some of your immediate questions. And quick and easy submissions is via this portal that's at the end of the page, where you just provide us with this information, consolidate your documents, and upload them also accordingly. Right, so this is just a snapshot of where we are. So we launched in August. We are in the concept note phase. As mentioned, the deadline is September the 20th for concept notes. We will then conduct our review and shortlisting. Those concept notes that advance to the full proposal phase will have the opportunity to access a project preparation grant up to the tune of $10,000 US, and then we'll also have some technical backstopping that can be provided so that we come through this process with some robust full proposals, and we're working towards the award of projects in the second quarter of next year. So we have about 4 to 5 months for the full proposal phase allocated. So that is it in a nutshell. I'm aware that we're tight on time today. And so we're just providing the email address here. We'll also drop it in the chat and encourage you to reach out if you need to chat with us more about this. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rachel. And yes, we rushed her along, but I think she did great. And I hope that that answers Joao's question, which is where can you get funding for work such as this? This is one opportunity. It's well outlined as Rachel and the team have put in the chat. Please go to our website to hear more. We really are looking for innovation in circular economy work. Plastics are a big part, but there's other stuff going on. So please come to us with your innovative ideas. I also take the opportunity to echo what Paulita said in terms of the NGOs and the idea, as Rachel also said, of collaboration between the partners and coming in as government with an NGO partner, with a civil society group right beside you. There's Paulita's example is already there in terms of a school, for example, and what can work. So we look forward to innovation in how those processes have gone. I think the best way to wrap up is to ask everybody for one final word based on the comments in the chat. Very, very useful discussions. And then the coolest product that you've seen created from plastic waste streams. And you each have 1 minute. So I will start, since this is Diane's forte, she can go last. I'll start with Florian.
Okay, there's so many products that is cool, so, but I love the concept of the plastic board that's been produced. You see it all over, and then it could be used for producing furniture, bins, and so on and so forth. So I think I love that approach. And just
I missed the word.
Yeah.
What was it?
I didn't get it. Yeah, board. There's a plastic board that is utilized, and it could be used for outdoor furniture. And given the rainfalls that we have within our jurisdiction, utilizing wood and metal, the issues that realize from that. So utilizing that commodity is good. I just want to leave this lad with everybody. We need to consider waste is a resource. It's not something to throw in our bin, but it is a resource. It could be used over and over and over and again, and we need to rethink our ways of operating. And we have 8.2 billion people upon the face of the earth. We are going to produce material that needs to be processed. And that is where the whole issue of innovation comes in, to ensure that we close the loop. but the task at hand can be done. We have shown that we have the ability to adapt and provide technologies that is integral in promoting the circular economy approach. So let's put our hands together and fight. Yeah.
For those who don't know, is it 9 R's? So please learn all 9 of the R's. It's no longer 3 R's.
Refuse is the first. Refuse it.
Is the first.
Yeah.
So I continue to learn as I do this work. Paulita, the same question for you, a final thought and the coolest plastic product you've seen, recycled plastic product.
I think that using plastics in a recycled form for building is great. I think using it inside of the foundations and structural elements of homes, I've seen that done and it works really well. And I don't really have a closing word, but I have a closing hashtag. Let's have more pride, less plastic.
Thank you so much. Luke, same for you.
Yes, I'll name 2 products. I've been doing some research and I've been seeing shoes made from plastics and park benches, quite valuable and easy to make and they can withstand the weather as well. And the word that I'll leave you with is that I'm quite excited for our opportunities here in the region. A lot of the countries in the region, they already have the first phase. Some people are trying their best to collect, but we need to implement the other stages so we can have a full circular economy, and also for the different governments to put policies in place. I know a lot of the countries have already done the single-use plastic ban, but there is more that needs to be done.
Great. And as I promised, Anne, please, I know you have a lot of ideas and seen a lot of plastic products, but your final word and your coolest plastic.
Yes, I think the coolest that I've seen last week were planters, specifically made for a public festival here in the area. And this designer is from Curaçao, and he created planters from the waste from the community to bring it back into the community, but then in the form of a planter with large trees. Also as a reminder to the people that if you look at waste differently, then this is what you can do. So would be my final quote.
Thank you all so much. Lots of resources in the chat to make sure you grab them. And I was happy to give the last word back to the panelists. I think it's been a great discussion. As I said, the chat has been very active and I'm very pleased to see it. Glad to see that some of you will be with us in St. Lucia for Red Lac, and that some of you will be with me and Cali for the CBD COP. Thank you so much for joining. Please reach out if you have any questions that weren't answered. We're happy to have it answered later. Thank you all.
Thank you, Karen. And of course, a huge thank you to all of our speakers today, Florian, Diane, Paulita, Luke, Rachel. Thank you so much for such an insightful discussion. As you would have seen in the chat and Karen mentioned, CBF will be partnering with Red Lac for the Red Lac conference in St. Lucia next month. And I think this is definitely a great platform to continue this conversation and as well touch on other topics that are pertinent to small island developing states. Also, for those of you who may have missed it, we announced very exciting news during our opening session on Monday. Island Innovation is partnering with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis to host the second Global Sustainable Island Summit. After this year's experience in Prince Edward, Canada, the Global Sustainable Island Summit will now be coming to the Caribbean for the very first time. It will be held from May 27th to the 29th next year, that's 2025, and we will be discussing solutions and advancements in sustainable energy. All virtual Island Summit attendees will be given an additional discount on that early bird ticket, so you can check the chat for more details on this. For future announcements and information, you can follow our social media platforms as well as stay tuned to our website. And we have one more session for today. This will be zero emission trucks and buses in island context coming up in just about 1 hour. So we hope to see you all then. Thank you.